afternoon and welcome to Invest Precision Medicine. I'm Stephanie Baum, Director of Special Projects with MedCity News. And thank you for joining us for the Health IT track of our startup pitch contest, Pitch Perfect. We have 5 startups taking part this afternoon with 3 judges. To get us started, it's probably good to go over some of the ground rules for the contest. As I said, we'll have 5 startups pitching. They'll each get 5 minutes to present an overview of their businesses and 6 minutes to take questions from the judges. We're going to strictly enforce the time, so please be respectful of each other's time. And at the end of the startups pitching, we're going to have an audience poll, so members of our audience can choose their favorite startup among the track. And next week, we'll publish the judges' picks for the winners, not only of the Health IT track today, but of the Life Sciences track, which is tomorrow. And okay, so, and also just a housekeeping note, when each of the startups presents, their executive summary will be shared in the chat. So if you look in the chat, that's how you can access each company's deck and get a better understanding of what they're doing. Okay, and now it's time to introduce our judges for the Health IT track. First, we have Andrea Jackson with North Pond Ventures. Andrea Jackson is a director of North Pond Ventures and leads the firm's work in convergent technologies. She's also a board member at several healthcare companies. Previously to North Pond Ventures, Andrea was the commercial lead at Farcast Biosciences, an oncology clinical diagnostic company. And prior to that, Andrea held various senior commercial leadership roles in life science startups and large companies. Before her operating roles, Andrea worked in JP Morgan's healthcare investment banking team and focused on life science tools, diagnostics, and biotechnology companies. Welcome to the judging panel, Andrea. Also among our judges, we have Alyssa Jaffe, partner with 7 Wire Ventures, where she focuses on investments in digital healthcare and technology-enabled services that empower consumers to be better stewards of their health in today's changing healthcare ecosystem. Alyssa's prior experience includes her time at Pritzker Group Venture Capital, where she led investments in several companies. Additionally, she worked at Hyde Park Angels, one of the Midwest's largest angel organizations, and HealthBox, an early-stage healthcare innovation firm. Welcome to the panel, Alyssa. Last but not least, we have Taha Janga, a partner with HealthX Ventures. Taha started his journey at the Texas Medical Center, the world's largest medical center. During his time with TMC, he took part in the creation of the TMC Innovation Institute, which is comprised of a healthcare and life science startup accelerator incubator, JJ Innovation Center for Device Innovation, and J Labs, as well as AT&T Connected Health Foundry. Having seen firsthand how a lack of integration hinders patient care, Taha followed his entrepreneurial spirit and later joined Redox as the Director of Strategic Partnerships to help digital solutions get into the hands of care providers faster. I'm really excited about the companies that we have presenting this afternoon. Their technologies include a biomedical data platform, personalized health approach to weight management, identifying biomarkers in a person's voice to detect disease, and developing microbiome-based solutions. And they include Vocalis Health, PhenoBiome, BioXplor, Intellihealth, and AIQ Solutions. So without further ado, let's start the pitch. We have starting is BioXplor, which is on a mission to discover novel drug combinations and improve clinical development. One of the biggest challenges in cancer today is interpretation of the massive amount of unstructured cancer data being generated and finding the right treatment for the right patient at the right time. BioXplor aims to solve this problem with an intelligent cancer data analytics platform to uniquely prioritize drug combinations based on safety and efficacy insights from aggregated public and private, structured and unstructured medical data and to analyze the response of drugs in patients. Presenting on behalf of BioXplor is Mark Rogers, the CEO. Take it away, Mark.
Okay, hello everybody. Mark Rogers. I'm CEO and co-founder of BioXplor. So we're building an evidence-based data analytics and decision support platform to find the right drug combinations matched to the right patient. We're a seed stage company established in 2017. We operate mostly in Germany. Our HQ is in Berkeley, California, and we have an operation also in Dublin. We're backed by UC Berkeley Skydeck, Merck Accelerator, and European Commission, as well as other partnerships. So finding the right drug combinations for the right patient is a major problem in the clinic, particularly for rare cancers and for cancers that are not responding to the standard treatment regimens. And the reason why it's difficult to select the right combination for the patient is the high patient variability, as well as the millions of potential drug combinations that could be matched. So there's lots of data available today, but it's very complex to interpret, and it's certainly too expensive to screen the many possible combinations in multiple disease models. So the solution is computational, and we're building a digital platform to prioritize drug combinations uniquely based on safety and efficacy insights that can support the clinician in making decisions, better decisions faster, and also collecting data and aggregating data for pharmaceutical companies to analyze clinical responders and to select patients for clinical trials. So the first step is to find all possible drug combinations for the specific cancer type. And we do this using our proprietary network pharmacology system. It utilizes the protein-protein interactome and identifies synergistic drug targets and matching combinations that fit the specific type of cancer. The next step is to triage all of these drug combinations to match to the right patient type. And we do this by combining insights from medical records and as well as network pharmacology insights from the human interactome. And hereby we can enhance the clinical responder analysis into the right subgroups and identify which combination may work better in which type of patient. So we've done multiple pilot studies in responder analysis and drug combinations, and we've significant traction with leading pharma companies like Novartis, Merck, and Amgen. So just recently, we won Amgen's challenge to find the right drug combinations for the right patient in multiple myeloma, as judged by the panelists from Takeda, Abbott, AstraZeneca, and Sanofi. And we also won the prestigious Seal of Excellence from the European Commission's Innovation Council, which is equivalent to SBIR Phase 2 in the US. So we operate in the cancer trials, analytics, and the clinical decision supports market. And we aim to capture a $1 billion market opportunity, and up to 100 million in revenue is very highly possible for us with the right partners by 2027. We compete with companies like Health Verity, Concert AI, and Tempus, and we compete with them and differentiate through our clinical decision support system, our drug combinations focus, the option to do in silico clinical trials for pharma companies, and to collect patient-reported outcomes in our systems. So our management team includes myself. I have a background in life science and emerging technologies. I previously worked for Merck KGaA. And Pavel has a decade of experience in high-performance computing and software engineering, a background in bioinformatics and software engineering. John Conway has 20 years experience in directing data science teams. His specialism is in data analytics and machine learning. And Anna O'Leary has a decade of experience in management and operation. Our advisory team include David Kwan, a former medical director at Novartis and Gilead, a professor in cancer therapeutics and pharmacology, the chief technology officer at UC Berkeley, and an engineering director at Google, who's also an investor. So these are our partners, our investors, and our accelerators. Today, we're looking for a new partner to join our seed round. So we're raising 2.5 million in seed capital to launch our first modules for blood cancer, starting with multiple myeloma, and to build out our team. So thank you very much for listening. I think I'm just on time now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, fine. Why don't we start with, thank you for your presentation, Mark. Sorry. And why don't we start with Taha?
Thank you, Stephanie. Great presentation. Quite a lot of different questions. I'm still struggling to understand what it is exactly that you do. Is it, do you have like a clinical decision support on the front end, and then also have, the network pharmacology part sitting on the back end, where you're doing two ends, and is the goal, where do you interact with the clinician as well?
That's exactly it. So we've been spending the last few years building out the network pharmacology system in the back end. And we've been testing this in pilots with pharmaceutical companies for clinical trials. And now we want to build out into the clinician decision support side. So we know that we can apply this network pharmacology technology to identify combinations using unstructured data, but also structured data. It can use the EMR, it uses the literature and clinical trial insights, as well as can incorporate genomics data.
So to like just double click on that, then is it, so you're pulling from a lot of publications, right? And then you're pulling from traditional PK/PD models, I'm assuming, and maybe even using Bayesian forecasting. Is that potentially correct? And then you're giving referrals to the physician, or are you then mapping it and saying this drug has target A, this drug has target B, and then you're aggregating data to show what they're suggesting?
Right. So we build the human interactome from literature, and it continuously updates based on the protein-protein interactome. And then we add on new connections to proteins that can be matched out to patient data. And in that way, we can segment the groups of patients who could respond to certain targets. We use a the network pharmacology system itself segments clusters or neighborhoods of protein groups and drug targets, and looks for the most synergistic combination in this way.
So I want to save time for my colleagues here. My only really two questions is just one as a follow-up there is, how are you looking at indication expansion over time? And then the other one is, a company that actually even Andrea mentioned in the group chat was XCures, right? I think we've looked at it just because of what we've seen with the background there. And how are you getting the EHR data today? Are you getting a BAA with these healthcare organizations where then you're just able to pull, or how are you kind of going about it?
So to date, we're working mostly with pharma companies, and we're building into the clinician decision market with the technology. So to date, we've done a number of indication expansion projects, including with Novartis, that led to a new clinical trial. The technology works quite well to identify rare diseases. And this is what we identified for a phase 3 study, which failed. And we also looked at reasons why it failed. They gave us the clinical data in that case, and we combined it with our own internal databases. So what we want to do next is to partner with hospital systems to provide the insights on what combinations can be more effectively selected by the clinician, and in return, capture insights from that EMR data added to our internal databases.
Awesome. All right, I'll defer to my peers then for further questions.
Thanks for the great questions.
Andrea or Alyssa, would you like to?
I can jump in. This is Andrea. One thing to think about is, what does success look like when you are up and running, and particularly with multiple myeloma patients? How are you thinking about what a successful patient experience would be if you could sort of dream forward to the platform in the clinic?
Yeah, so today we've interviewed a number of clinicians, and they have a major problem because there's 55 drugs that could be combined for multiple myeloma. selecting the right combination for the patient is often a trial and error process. So the great solution for the patient is that we can combine retrospective data on how these drugs have worked with a patient, and we can accelerate that with our human interactome insights to have a deeper responder analysis of the patient subgroups. So the end result for the patient is that they can get a much faster, much better treatment selection, and that also supports the physician who doesn't have that time to dig deep.
So along those lines, do you envision it being something that the patient is aware of and participatory in the process, or do you envision as a clinician to pair conversation or some iteration thereof?
No, what we really want to do is build out a patient-reported outcomes application that feeds data from the patient back into the clinician and how they're responding to those drug combinations. 80% of drugs prescribed in blood cancers are off-label, and the biggest concern is safety. So we can collect the proprietary data on this, combine it, and really add a lot of insight for clinicians into the platform, especially when we collect this from different sites around the world.
Okay, and then my last question is, before handing it off to Alyssa, is do you also anticipate thinking about modeling drugs in clinical trials, so in later stages, or do you want this just to be marketed drugs?
No, we started with actually looking at applications in drug discovery. So the core technology is built for novel combinations.
Okay.
So it's more straightforward for us to find approved combinations. So that works quite well for the clinicians. But it's definitely our ambition to support the end-to-end drug discovery process from early stage discovery into late stage clinical trials, and even into medical affairs post-approval on the pharma side.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for the judges' questions section. Thank you so much for presenting, Mark.
Thank you.
I'm sorry we didn't get to you, Alyssa. Okay, so next up, we have Intellihealth. Intellihealth is a medical technology company transforming the perception and treatment of obesity. Built on 30 years of clinical experience, Intellihealth's data-driven technology tackles the obesity epidemic at scale by equipping any medical provider with a comprehensive turnkey solution for treating patients with obesity, either remotely or in person. The software integrates with EHRs to improve outcomes and drive cost savings by personalizing and optimizing the diagnosis, prescriptive process, and comprehensive therapy plan to treat obesity as a disease. Presenting on behalf of Intellihealth is Dr. Catherine Saunders, co-founder and senior medical officer. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you again, Stephanie, for the introduction. I'm thrilled to be participating. I'm Catherine Saunders, co-founder and senior medical officer of Intellihealth, which is a healthcare company focused on addressing the obesity epidemic at scale. I'll start with the question, why is losing weight so hard? Most people or most providers, healthcare providers, don't have specialty training to help them understand that obesity is actually a misunderstood medical condition that's way more complex than calories in, calories out. And strategies like eating less and exercising more are not sufficient for most people. This is the topic that I've dedicated my career to. During my residency in internal medicine at Weill Cornell, I prescribed multiple medications for my patients' weight-related health complications, including high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and many other complications. But I didn't have the tools to address the underlying cause of most of their health problems, their overweight or obesity. So after residency, I became the first obesity medicine fellow at Weill Cornell's Comprehensive Weight Control Center, which is one of the leading academic weight centers in the world. Under the guidance of Dr. Louis Aroney, who pioneered the field of obesity medicine, I learned how to help patients lose weight and keep it off long-term. A few years ago, we started Intellihealth with Dr. Aroney, and our mission is to scale and democratize access to comprehensive treatment of overweight and obesity. So let's take a look at the problem. 74% of the country has overweight or obesity, and this number will increase to 80% in the next decade, or probably sooner actually because of the weight gain from this pandemic. Currently, there's minimal education and medical training on obesity and what it is and how to treat it. This is why most health professionals don't address their patients' weight and don't know how to help them lose weight. I'm one of fewer than 75 obesity medicine trained physicians in this country, and there are fewer than 6,000 board certified physicians as well. Compared to a disease like diabetes, where 86% of patients are treated according to guidelines, that number is less than 2% for the disease of obesity. This is the problem that we're addressing at our weight center and the problem that we're solving at Intellihealth. Our medical model helps people who repeatedly failed traditional weight loss programs to lose 2 to 3 times more weight and, more importantly, sustain that weight loss long term. Our software platform enables any provider to deliver this specialty care through algorithms that generate personalized treatment recommendations for each patient. Our business plan includes a SaaS-based revenue model per patient per month, licensed scales by patient volume. Providers can leverage the platform to help drive patient revenue and improve cost savings and reimbursement. In addition, we have an affiliated clinical service line called Flight, which can provide obesity treatment directly to customers such as employers and payers who require additional clinical resources. In terms of precision medicine, we recently filed a patent for our technical infrastructure and underlying algorithms. As obesity is an extremely complex disease where each patient has a different constellation of factors leading to weight gain and barriers preventing weight loss, our algorithms identify these causes, which include genetics, lifestyle contributors, medications that promote weight gain, and certain health conditions. We provide customized recommendations for both patients and their providers. We collect data from wearables and devices and display this information in a way that facilitates remote patient monitoring. As we grow, our algorithms will help categorize obesity into obesity phenotypes and optimize treatment protocols, including diet, physical activity, medication, and bariatric surgery for each obesity category. This will result in improved weight loss, health outcomes, and cost savings. In November, researchers at Brigham and Women's in Boston published a study in JAMA demonstrating the efficacy of our behavioral program in a population health setting. Many other publications and news outlets have also taken notice of our approach. Our recent recognition includes participation in the Dream It Accelerator program. We were also a quarter finalist at the UCSF Digital Health Awards and recently won a Women Innovator Investment Competition, which was a joint collaboration between Weill Cornell's BioVenture eLab and Amplify Her Ventures, a VC firm that focuses on women. In closing, I'd like to highlight a few of our customers at the bottom of this slide. We recently integrated with the electronic health record at Weill Cornell and all of New York Presbyterian, and we have further integrations planned. Thank you so much for having me. My email address is on this slide as well as our executive summary, and I'm looking forward to answering questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Catherine. Let's start with Alyssa, and just let's take one question per judge initially, just so everybody gets a chance.
Oh gosh, okay, I'll try and streamline myself here, but thank you so much, Catherine, for the thoughtful presentation and what a great background that you have and really the mission that you're on. For me, I'd like to better understand, I guess, I don't mean to tie this into a two-part question, but as you know, we focus a lot on verticalized solutions for chronic condition management. Our fund founded Livongo, who built a lot of the model selling to self-insured employers and some of the health plans. Talk to me about how you really think about consumer empowerment in this process. Where do you engage the consumer as part of sort of your two-pronged solution? And my part two is, I think there's some fatigue potentially around this revenue model feeling a bit more of a point solution. And many companies focused on chronic conditions are also focused on obesity. So So how do you see yourself integrating into those organizations who already have invested in some of those resources? And is there an opportunity to potentially collaborate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, Alyssa. I think that really gets at a very, very important point. What we have with Intellihealth really is completely different than any other company out there. Livongo, Omada, and several of the other companies that are in this space. Of course, it's an extremely crowded space, but what differentiates us is that we take people and patients who have tried Omada, who've tried Livongo, and tried Weight Watchers, Noom, any number of these companies, and have lost weight, but were unable to lose weight, as the vast majority of people are, without a medical approach, and regained weight. And maybe they tried and failed multiple times. And so what we're able to do is take this population of patients, which typically tends to be about 3/4 of people who do programs like this in different studies, and we can help those patients who've had no success with sustained weight loss. And with our medical comprehensive approach, we're able to help those people lose 2 to 3 times more weight. So we really see ourselves as extremely complementary. In terms of engaging the consumer, we work with large academic institutions, self-insured organizations. So we're training providers, and we're really empowering providers to feel more comfortable in offering weight management. It's something that in our medical training, we just don't get enough of or get any of. And so most healthcare providers don't feel comfortable bringing up their patients' weight because they really don't know what to do about it. And so what we've designed here is really the ability for providers with any medical background to get up to speed very quickly on very effective obesity specialty care. And we have all of the tools that will help them to succeed in treating their patients and help the patients on the other side with every tool that they would need through our platform to succeed as well.
Okay. And Andrea, do you have any?
Thank you so much.
Catherine, I really want to understand a little bit more about how you think about the clinical data that you're going to generate. And I realize you have had the chance to do some of that, but maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what you're thinking about continuing to generate to support your thesis.
Sure. So thank you for the question. That's also an important aspect of our company. We think of this a little bit as sort of the exhaust of the company. So, one of our missions is, treating obesity at scale. So leading to, better health outcomes for our patients just by, providing the kind of care that I do in my medical practice that most patients around the country just don't have access to because there is such a supply-demand mismatch. And so that's, our primary focus. But what's really, really exciting about this is that since this is such a new field of medicine, we do our best as clinicians to figure out the right medication or the right protocol for the right patient. And a lot of the time we succeed and our patients do great, but sometimes patients try and fail multiple times despite our best judgment. And it takes a while. And sometimes those patients don't come back because they're like, oh, this doesn't work. Why would I go back? So we do a lot of education saying, if this doesn't work, let's try this and this and this, but we lose patients by that and people get discouraged. So, as in many other fields, this is the whole idea of precision medicine. We are excited about looking at our large data set in many different ways with many different populations and really correlating which treatment plans are appropriate for which patients. And obesity, just like cancer in some ways, but obviously not as complex as cancer, has different phenotypes where different patients succeed with different treatment plans. And we have incorporated some of that into our algorithm. But as we continue to collect data, we'll be able to really optimize our treatment plans based on that data. And that's really kind of the crux of how our company fits in very, very nicely with the idea of precision medicine.
Thank you.
And Taha.
So first of all, great presentation. And as you were going through it, I really, it reminded me of when you look in clinical practice, right? Everyone ties obesity to, it's a lifestyle issue or just make lifestyle changes. So bringing in pharmacotherapy is great. And when you're looking at the numbers of you only have around 4,000 obesity specialists compared to the large, massive patient population. Is there any part of your strategy, if you were selling to a provider, is any part of the value proposition, oh, we will help you build a mini obesity center or a center of excellence for obesity, and there's a revenue source, you know, and I'm curious what the revenue source and value prop goes to that way, because we've helped build a business before around genetic counseling and augmenting that as well.
Thank you. These are excellent questions, and I really appreciate how these are highlighting many of the kind of missions of our company and our value proposition that I didn't have time to discuss in the pitch. So yes, we spend our time helping providers and institutions and self-insured organizations really stand up obesity treatment centers, basically. And we are very high touch. We can be as high touch as we need to be, and we help figure out how to make this profitable. One of the big sort of revenue streams is the untapped resource of remote patient monitoring. So this is something that we do in our practice, and that really improves our patient care, but is really not billed for. So by figuring out how to make this actually profitable, because this medical field, historically has not been profitable without things like that, remote patient monitoring is what we're really focusing on.
That's all the time we have. Thanks for your presentation, Catherine.
Thank you.
There's never enough time. Okay, next up we have Vocalis Health. Vocalis Health is an AI health tech company pioneering the development of voice-based tools which help to screen, detect, monitor, and predict health conditions, symptoms, and outcomes. Using voice as the first line of defense, Vocalis Health conducts clinical research and uses machine learning and deep learning techniques to identify vocal biomarkers based upon signals contained in the human voice, which provide health-related insights to people in the medical professions who care for them. Presenting on behalf of Vocalis Health is Michael Segev, Chief Commercial Officer. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Let's see how my technical skills are today. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. So thanks again for the opportunity. We at Vocalis Health use voice to monitor health. It's a simple value proposition, and it's based upon human behavior. We all have had a phone call or seen a loved one, a parent, a child, and said, "You don't sound right." And that really was the insight that led our co-founder, Dr. Shadi Hassan, to create the company. We have, we use voice, and specifically we use vocal biomarkers to have, sorry, I had to admit someone from the waiting room, to easily capture and quickly analyze your voice to provide health insights. It leverages this growing and highly scalable resource that is your voice. We deliver it to users using a very simple UX and existing devices. And our algorithms are what derive these health insights from voice analysis. So we like to say that we leverage voice as the first line of defense. It's clearly a tool that fits into the armamentarium of tools used in remote patient monitoring, used in to support healthy living. We never say that voice on its own is sufficient, but it has this tremendous advantage of being applicable across multiple use cases and being very easy to capture. So the user provides a single recording. Today, we ask them to count from 50 to 70. Their voice is analyzed using a cloud-based engine. And we now have the ability to actually run multiple vocal biomarkers on this single recording. And the entire process of sending the recording and receiving the health information back takes about 10 to 20 seconds. So we're very focused on making it both an accurate scientific tool, but also an engaging process for the consumer so that they're motivated to come back and utilize the technology even more. So let's go under the hood for a minute on the technology itself. We take voice from any device, can be mobile, but also wearable, home, car. We validate the quality of the voice recording, very importantly. And if we're in research mode, push it through our research platform. Otherwise, compare it to our voice database and utilize these machine learning derived algorithms to provide health insights. But specifically, we don't actually analyze the voice. We actually transform the voice recording to the visual domain. You can see here the spectrogram, 512 features with some proprietary embedding processes. We don't analyze any content. And that spectrogram is compared either to a composite spectrogram when you're doing population health screening, or to a personalized one when you're doing day after day monitoring of a symptom, disease, or condition. It's a software-only product with a cloud-based algorithm that we make available as an SDK, so it can be implemented into existing platforms or apps, as a web app, and as a mobile app when needed. So where do we turn our attention? So in a way, there are so many things you can do with voice. It spans the spectrum of personal, population, and predictive health. We have the capability of analyzing voice throughout the customer journey. We have a robust pipeline. All of these areas here either have products, late stage development products, or proof of concept in our hands. And it really does range. If you look, I'll just use a couple of examples over at Healthy Living. We can track fatigue. Over here on the right, we can manage your COPD, CHF, et cetera. We focus based first on the interest of our partners. We work with Roche on congestive heart failure. We have an agreement with Mayo Clinic for multiple vocal biomarkers in development, starting with pulmonary hypertension. We've worked with Geisinger at a GSK-sponsored study to validate our COPD product. And our products, Vocalis Check is for COVID-19, with about 4,000 users in commercial and another 3,000 in trials. Track is for COPD and shortness of breath. And we're just piloting our first multi-biomarker prototype. I'll say all of our products are developed under QMS. We're ISO certified and HIPAA and GDPR compliant. This is our amazing team. I'm watching the clock and seeing that I'm out of time. So I'll just conclude and take any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alyssa, why don't you start?
Fantastic. Happy to do so. Thanks for the presentation, Michael. I'm curious, there's a lot of companies right now going after vocal biomarkers. So what is it that makes you differentiated? And why do you think that you're best poised to win?
Yeah, I mean, so I wish there were more companies going after vocal biomarkers. There's, to my understanding, a good dozen or so, but it's still a nascent field. And that's particularly looking at the type of vocal biomarker that we are perturbing. So not including any of the NLP, content analysis. Our competitors and we actually root for each other pretty strongly, because the biggest challenge really is getting people to believe that you can use voice to generate health insights. In terms of the competitive and comparative differences, our technology approach is different. We take a holistic approach. We take the whole voice recording. We let the machine do the thinking for us. Most of our competitors, and there's nothing wrong with this approach, but have identified 1, 2, or 3 particular features of the voice or of the way people breathe, and they hypothesize or demonstrate that those features are important for disease X. So they're really kind of hanging their hat on a single or a double spoke. Our 512 feature spectrogram is unique. And as a result, I think we're more able to capture certain subtle differences in signs. So, it's not just about diagnosing congestive heart failure or a symptom of congestive heart failure, but in our case, we're using voice to call what NEHAU class that congestive heart failure patient is in. So it's I think the approach has a better chance of working in these more complex chronic diseases. And that's really where our wheelhouse is.
So do you, Michael, believe that a horizontal approach then is better than a verticalized approach? Is that what you're saying here?
From a technology perspective, yes, but from a company perspective, of course, we have to pick our battles. We're a startup. We have certain preferences, and we know where we think our technology works best. But ultimately, we have to pick one or two battlegrounds and fight there. We focused very heavily on COVID for the past year for somewhat obvious reasons. We have a really strong foothold in respiratory based on our previous. And, if it really is dependent, Alyssa, on on how successful we are and which partner we go to, right? So in the case of our pharma partners, they have a very singular therapeutic area focus. They want us to dive deep into the vocal biomarker space, but also provide an app that wraps around it that does overall disease management, those kind of things. In terms of partners like in telemedicine, where the real objective is detection of a disease that the clinician isn't aware of, then having this broad capability gives us some leverage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Taha?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Michael, for that presentation. Voice is an area that we've looked a lot in, except not on the direct clinical side. One of the reservations I have, and maybe some others in the venture community have, is the clinical data required to prove the voice biomarkers requires a lot of money. And just curious of what the ROI analysis looks like and what you're comparing to, and even the sheer lack of peer-reviewed studies that are out there, or it might just be my own kind of ignorance there. So curious what you guys are doing there to advance it and honestly validate the voice biomarkers as well.
Yeah, so it's funny. It's all about where you come from. I have 20 plus years at Merck, and to me, these studies are cheap and easy. I mean, COVID-19 is a great example. Patient participation in one of our studies takes exactly 1 day, right? I take a PCR, I take a voice sample. Of course, I need to gather enough of those individuals, so it's not free. But actually, our team is able, in my experience with them, less than a month after the completion of first POC, they kill or say, let's keep going. Because actually deriving an initial signal is easy. Your point is 100% correct, though, in terms of the bar for clinical, I wouldn't say validation, but acceptance, right? So, I mean, we have encountered challenges where we're providing a very robust voice screening tool, for instance, for COVID-19, and our customers are comparing it to PCR. And we're never going to.
That's just there's no, are there definitive biomarkers that you guys have been able to get out of that, right? Because we have a tool for COVID-19 that with 81% accuracy can tell you within 60 seconds whether you have a high or low risk of being positive. So compare that to that temperature wand that they wave at your forehead, or the self-reported symptom questionnaire. It's a very effective tool, and actually its efficacy is just as good in asymptomatic patients as in patients with symptoms. When it comes to the more personalized tool, like our COPD product, so in our validation study, that product had a 93% accuracy compared to clinicians. And that, from the perspective of the pulmonologists that we've worked with whom we're planning our next study, that the ability to achieve that kind of result every day is phenomenal. Obviously, they can't talk to their patients every day. So
I take your point, and of course you're right. More peer-reviewed publications would be useful. There are a couple of centers, both academic and industrial, that have published dozens, and really that bibliography has exploded over the last 2 years. So I think we're getting there. I think it's still a difficult concept for some people to grasp, that you can talk and I can tell you what disease you have or how bad your disease is. So I don't mean to diminish the importance of getting there, but I think we're rounding the corner in terms of that clinical validation.
We have time for one question, quick question from Andrea.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to learn more about your business. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about the team you have behind this effort.
Sure. So we're, our company is an Israeli startup. Myself and our CEO are based here in the Boston area, and there in Haifa and Tel Aviv. We have, so Tal, our CEO, was the founder of Corindus Vascular Robotics, which exited a year and a half ago, $1.1 billion from Siemens. Our co-founders, one is a physician, Shadi Hassan. He was an internist and practicing in Israel, and the other is a Microsoft and Intel experienced CTO. We, our CFO is from Fidelity, but I think you're probably asking more about the science behind it, right? So, strong data science team and a very strong clinical team, seeking actually to grow those teams.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Great questions.
Thanks for your presentation, Michael. Next up, we have PhenoBiome. PhenoBiome helps to rebalance microbiomes from unhealthy to healthy. PhenoBiome's ability to understand the most complex interactions between bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites within a microbiome allows it to develop customized prebiotics, probiotics, and food supplements for humans, animals, and plants. Presenting on behalf of PhenoBiome is Didier Perez, the CEO. Over to you, Didier.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you and good afternoon. So our mission is very straightforward. Our mission is to help people, animal and plants, staying healthier and healthier. And we believe the way to do that is to develop a end-to-end microbiome solution. And what we mean by end-to-end is we decide to start with the design of an assay, and then based on the data from that assay, we can personalize prebiotics and probiotics. And that's the idea behind PhenoBiome. The technology was developed by scientists at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and Sanford Burnham Institute. And they thought was, if we just knew well enough what was in the gut, maybe, just maybe, that would be the great starting point to figure out how to get people healthier instead of providing them the same prebiotic, the same probiotic, and just getting out of the literature what you should be doing. And so that is what we've done. We've created our first assay, and our first assay is a human gut microbiome assay. It has 3,000 annotated and curated unique bacteria, and more importantly, it has 100 phenotypic signature. And really, phenotypic signature is the key to our technology, because there are a lot of companies doing microbiome, all good company, all good technology, but where they start and stop is at the taxonomy table, which is what is inside of your gut, all of those bacteria, parasites, et cetera, et cetera. This is where we start, because once you have that, it's not enough. Then you need to understand the physiological relationship between those agents, and that's what we call phenotypic signatures. And when you understand that, then you can see, is that agent a promoter, inhibitors? Should it be there? Should it not be there? And if you develop your recommendation based on those phenotypic signatures versus just what is inside, you will get a completely different report. And I think that's why we can customize and personalize what we do, and other technology have yet not able to do that. We are a startup, and while the company was incorporated in 2016, we really didn't get going until 2020, and we raised a small round from a strategic partner, a technology company developing a methylation technologies. And the idea was, and that's usually when I'm a CEO of a company, and this is my 8th company, it's a very simple math for me is, within 1 year, can we bring that product to market? Can we validate it? Can we test it? Can we have at least 2 customers? And do we understand what the other markets and the other product could be? So we've done that after a year. And so now we are ready to raise a 1 million to complete our seed round, basically. The team, what's great about the team, other than they are just fantastic scientists and people, is that we've all worked together as a group in different companies. So Pavel, Andrei, and Dmitry are the co-founder of PhenoBiome. And while they work at PhenoBiome for 10 years, both Pavel and Dmitry were professors together at Moscow State University. So they know each other, they know how to work together. I've been working with them for a year. Jessica Nurik, Jessica Campbell, and Michelle Maddox and I worked in the last company called Toolbox Genomics. I was a co-founder and the CEO of that company. And then prior to that, Yuri and I and Dr. Heather Kaczynski founded a company called Eureka Genomics, and which we sold to Affymetrix. And Volker was our agri-tech specialist in there. So it's rare at an early seed stage that you have a company where all of the team has been working together in other companies. They understand how to work. They know what a bootstrap it is. They know what a startup is. This is invaluable. This is just great. Our technology is really a platform technology, because once we identify, or once we are contracted to develop a specific microbiome, what we call phenotype proprietary profiler, which what we do is we look at a specific microbiome, whether it's human, animal, or plant. We look at all of the components, and then we curate and annotate that with our algorithm. Once that is done, then we take the sample through our profiler, after doing, of course, DNA extraction and then sequencing, and then we get a report. And that report is the basis for us to be able to develop a pre or probiotic supplement. And so that is why it is very different, because it will be customized. So right now, we are working on all 3 of those projects all across. So market size, it's huge simply because it has human, animal, and feed. So pretty much.
Didier,
Yeah.
please wrap up so we can go over to the judges' Q&A.
So these are the development pipeline. We have products starting to sell in exactly 1 month, and we'll have 1 more this year and 2 more the next year. And we've identified, we have a contract with 2 distributors starting distributing the product this next month. And this is our pre or probiotic product that would be completely personalized for patient or client. Thank you.
Thank you, Didier. Now it's over to the judges. If you could just each ask initially 1 question each, that would be great. We'll start with Alyssa.
Lucky me, I keep getting to go first. So thanks so much for the presentation. This was helpful. I guess I'm struggling to understand a little bit about the go-to-market, working with distributors, continuing to build out tests. Maybe just talk to us a bit more about the monetization strategy and really who are you servicing in this process, particularly, maybe over the next 12 months.
Sure. So first of all, there is absolutely no money into a selling test because we don't have a lab. We contract lab, we subcontract lab. So you generate very little amount of money when you actually do a test, a microbiome test. The money comes from when we do R&D development for drug and diagnostic company that want to use our microbiome profilers to design drugs and diagnostics so we can get some upstream royalty, but mostly from the development of prebiotic and probiotic. We are collaborating with two large institutions that makes those, so they'll make it for us and then we'll be selling it. So most of the money will be coming from the sale of prebiotic and probiotics.
Thank you.
Andrea, sorry.
This is Andrea. Thanks for sharing the story. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you narrowed in on the right sort of application or patient population, and maybe where would you go next?
So we narrowed in to, actually we didn't narrow it in. It started with the gut because that's the largest, that's the most informative. And the founders figured if they could actually crack that and make it work, every other microbiome would be easier. And so we started with that. But where we're going next, and we have a lot of hope and a lot of interest already, is in what we call women's health, because we're going to combine gut and vaginal microbiome. And so moving forward, what we're trying to do, we'll have assay, which is gut and brain. We'll have assay, we look at a microbiome from someone who had a specific disease like COVID, or a specific lifestyle like vegan or vegetarian. So this is just to validate our technology, but where our niche is looking at microbiome and whether they are skin or oral or gut, based on individual or animals who had specific health condition. And that's where they need the most help. And that's what will be dictating the products coming on board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Taha.
Awesome, thank you. Just double clicking on the question Alyssa asked around, I'm still struggling to figure out what your end product exactly is, right? And how you'd price it. To me, it seems like you're just, there's probably a base monthly recurring model or annual license for offering the analysis for companies, and then you get additional by volume. Is that kind of how you're approaching your business model? I'm struggling to figure out, if you become like an analytics services platform, and then how you're tackling the diagnostics and treatment in the future as well.
Not completely. So for example, we're starting in August through a Genetic Direction. Genetic Direction has about 900 affiliates, right? And so what they will do is they will sell to the affiliate a gut microbiome and then later vaginal product, right? So we do the sequencing, we do the analysis, then we share the revenue. So we wholesale the product, or we get our cost, they sell the product to the affiliate, we share the revenue. Then based on that, we design prebiotic and probiotic where we keep 100% of those revenue. When we talk with drug company and diagnostic companies, they pay us a fee to do the R&D and then an upstream revenues based on the result of their R&D product. But the key is every time we do an assay, we get paid for sequencing the assay, which is a minimal amount of money, but then we develop those pre and probiotic, and then we sell them to the consumers.
Got it. I guess we can go on to the next pitch then. Thank you for that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions? We still have a little bit of time to play with.
I could keep going, Stephanie. Is how are you kind of distinguishing? Is there a path in the future to develop live therapeutics as well? Is that part of your future product strategy, or that's also something that comes to mind as you're explaining just now?
It is, but it's of course it's in the plan, but it's so early because at our stage, right? And I want to be very practical about what we can be doing for the next 24 months. And so there are those projects, but we can't even start thinking about those until we can actually validate our ability and convince people that our microbiome solution is far superior than anything we've seen to the marketplace. And then 2 years from now, it'll be a different solutions.
Awesome, thank you. If I don't know how much more time we have. I'm not sure if it was for the sake of time or anything else like that. But could you add some color around the validation of
Sure.
Of your platforms?
Absolutely. So, and I failed to mention that the product was fully developed at Sanford Burnham Medical Institute. We have a worldwide exclusive license from Sanford Burnham, and then gut feeling lab with a lab and a commercial operation in Sweden has used the test 6,000 times specifically for their population, which is a population at risk of diabetes that wanted to understand their gut microbiome. So it's been validated over 6,000 times on 6,000 different assays.
Now, let's bring up our last presenting company today. That is AIQ Solutions. AIQ Solutions has developed a revolutionary software. Sorry, excuse me. Let me get my camera on there. Sorry, AIQ Solutions has developed a revolutionary software technology that will change the way clinicians manage complex diseases such as metastatic cancer and neurological disorders. The cloud-based platform provides unique early intelligence to predict both treatment effectiveness and toxicity risk from longitudinal imaging data. AIQ's technology does not diagnose disease, rather it enables the clinical team to make a real-time patient-specific adjustments to therapy, which helps improve outcomes while reducing healthcare system costs. AIQ has built and validated its product and achieved FDA clearance. Presenting on behalf of AIQ Solutions is Eric Horler, President and CEO. Over to you, Eric.
All right, thank you very much. So I guess I'll ask the standard question. Can people see my slides?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, hi, everybody. I am Eric Horler. I am the CEO of AIQ Solutions. AIQ has developed a medical software technology to help improve outcomes for patients with complex diseases, starting with metastatic cancer, by providing unique information that enables more effective therapy optimization. Our vision is to improve survival by at least 6 months for at least 2/3 of patients with metastatic cancer. Our technology fits into the general category of personalized medicine, but it's different from most of the technologies that you'll see and that you've heard about today, in that we're not focused on the left-hand side of this slide. We're not focused on screening, diagnosis, and initial therapy selection. In metastatic cancer, quite often, the clinical outcomes that are observed don't match the expectations when that initial therapy was selected. And that, I'm going to talk about why that is, but that's where AIQ's technology comes into play. The reason that the expectations often don't match the actual outcomes is that when you have a lot of lesions, not all of those lesions respond the same to treatment. Some of those lesions will be responding well, but some of those lesions will be resistant. More importantly, what we have demonstrated with our technology and published is that less than 10% of lesions being resistant to a therapy ultimately drives a poor outcome for the patient. So if you want to improve the therapeutic outcomes for these patients, you need to better understand and target the resistant disease. Standard of care, however, usually consists of a holistic assessment of whether the patient is doing better, or you have a radiologist manually identifying, measuring, and tracking a limited number of lesions. And by international standard, they're going to track no more than 3 to 5 lesions per patient. But if you have 100 lesions and you're worried about 9 of them, then tracking 3 to 5 is not going to give you the full picture. You need a different approach. And that's where AIQ Solutions technology comes in. Our technology automatically identifies where all the lesions are, quantifies how every individual lesion is responding to treatment, as you see on the left-hand side of this slide. There's no other technology that can do that. We then go a step further and take all that quantitative data in a machine learning algorithm to predict from early on in a therapy how the patient ultimately is going to respond to that therapy. Finally, we also predict the risk of toxicity to healthy organs, because every decision in oncology is a balance between the desired effectiveness and the risk of toxicity. We do this by taking time series or longitudinal radiological scans, uploading them to our secure server, Our entire product solution is architected in the cloud. We run our proprietary algorithms that include artificial intelligence, as well as the predictive algorithms, and return all of that information back to the clinical team in an interactive portal. So the team can then look at all the quantification, the predictions, can model different therapeutic interventions and see how that changes the prognosis for the patient, and ultimately then can decide how they want to alter the therapy. For example, they might see that a patient has a poor prognosis due to limited resistance. Here you see 2 resistant lesions in this liver. Not only have we told them how much heterogeneity there is, but the exact spatial location of the resistant disease. So now they can use, for example, localized ablation to treat the resistant disease. Looking only at therapy optimization for metastatic cancer, the total addressable market globally is about $7 billion. That doesn't include the opportunities in other areas like neurological disorders or earlier stage cancer. Our primary competition I've already talked about, it's manual analysis. There are a lot of companies, of course, that are using artificial intelligence on imaging data, generally for the purpose of diagnosis. None of these can quantify treatment response for all lesions, much less predict therapy effectiveness and toxicity. In many ways, we're actually much closer to the companies that are using non-imaging biomarkers for treatment response assessment. These companies, however, lack the critical spatial information that you need to actually target that resistant disease and improve outcomes. This is what makes AIQ unique. At this point, we have built and validated our product. We've received FDA clearance and we've initiated pilots in hospitals while also selling to pharmaceutical companies to generate cash flow. We're on target to do about $1 million in revenue this year. We're raising a $10 million round right now to focus on market access activities, which will then allow us ultimately to do a later growth round when we're ready to expand into the full market. We were founded by globally renowned leaders in medical physics and medical oncology at the University of Wisconsin, and have built a team of professionals. We have 15 people at this point with a lot of experience in medical devices, software, and startups. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Thank you, Eric, for your presentation. Now let's start with Andrea this time.
Hi, Eric. Good to see you again. Thanks for
Hey, Andrea, good to see you as well.
Thanks for sharing your story. It's always interesting to see how much progress you continue to make. So thanks for sharing it. One of the things that's always interesting to think about in this is how do you get the physician to add this step to their workflow and think about what that pitch looks like to them to add this into how they interact with their patients. Can you talk a little bit about what some of your initial research has revealed?
Yeah, so it's actually not an incremental step, believe it or not, for anybody in the workflow. So the oncologist is already getting some sort of a recommendation from the radiologist. And the radiologist is already trying to look at these scans and trying to come up with what that recommendation is. There's no question in our discussions that our clinical champion is the oncologist. The radiologist is just trying to turn around a report as fast as they can because the oncologist is picking up the phone and calling them. But from the radiologist's point of view, once they get that second scan, we've built an interface that is so easy for them to use that it basically replaces what they otherwise would have been doing to try to do this treatment response assessment. So, I mean, really the only piece of it that is a slight change in their workflow is somebody's got to drag the scan into our portal so that it uploads into the cloud.
Got it. And one of the things that always has been interesting to think about is sort of the heterogeneity across different metastases through the body. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how your technology can really delineate some of that?
So do you mean like how we treat different organ systems differently?
Different nodes, right? Every node has a little bit more of a different response profile or a different biology.
Yep. So what we have found is, at least relative to applying our technology, what really matters is where the Mets are, not where the original cancer that originated them. And so there's a certain set of organs where you often see metastases. We have optimized our lesion detection and lesion classification for each of those different organs. So, for example, we've optimized for the liver, we've optimized for the lungs, we've optimized for the bone, we've optimized for the lymph nodes, et cetera, for, whether it's neuroendocrine tumors or it's melanoma or it's breast cancer, and you're seeing the mets in the liver, it's actually all pretty much looking the same as long as it's based upon that liver module.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Taha?
Hey, Eric, it's good to see someone else from Madison on here.
Good to see you as well. It's been a long time since we
Yeah. Just a quick question. What do these large imaging vendors look like when you think of your business model? Are they potential channel partners? Are they acquirers? Where do you feel like a Philips or a GE or a Siemens or anyone like that would kind of think of you?
We look at them as potential acquirers, first and foremost. I mean, I can elaborate on that if you want, but I mean,
I don't know if you've engaged with them, but that was kind of like my first question. And the other one was, is there a business model or market with large manufacturers and in pharma life sciences specifically, outside of just working with providers?
So a large market selling to the pharma, or
or just as a revenue source and things like that. I remember a long time ago, we even talked about working with Novartis or others and stuff like that. So
yeah, so there is absolutely a market there. That's the reality, is that's where our revenue is coming from in the short term as we work through market access. We don't think that is a huge market. We think that's a decent market. Maybe we could do 10 million a year top line in the pharma market. But we don't think it has nearly the kind of potential as patient management. Now, there are absolutely opportunities for partnerships. For example, someone who's developing one of the new theranostics, we're doing a lot right now with these theranostics. Our technology could really come as a valuable add-on. And so perhaps we almost become kind of like the equivalent of a companion diagnostic for one of those as that moves forward. In terms of the imaging hardware companies, they're all actively trying to figure out how to monetize, get recurring revenue rather than just capital equipment sales. We have talked to them a little bit. We haven't gotten very far yet. I think once we start to generate a little bit more revenue from our big market, which is the hospital market, that will catalyze some of those discussions.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll pass it off to Alyssa.
Great, thanks, Eric. And a thoughtful presentation here. I'm curious, talk just a little bit about workflow augmentation in your conversations with both the radiologist and the oncologist. What has to happen in order for this solution to succeed?
So, I mean, really brass tacks on it. We are working through the process of getting a CPT code that would provide revenue to all of the different players. So essentially, we need to have a payment structure where the facility makes money when our technology is used, we make money when our technology is used, and the clinicians make money. And so we've been working for the past 2 years through that process, building up a lot of support from both ASCO and ACR, so that when we do go to the CPT panel, we're able to have success there. That's going to be a critical piece. Beyond that, the next step is hospital IT system integration, right? So it doesn't matter how great it is, if it's not at their fingertips, then they won't use it. We have strategically decided not to build that. We are partnering with companies that already have platforms that integrate into the PACS systems for access to the scans and integrate into the EMRs to deliver the report. They're essentially going to be like distribution partners for us. We've got one strategic partner already signed that we're working with. We're in deep discussions with a really big player in that space right now. We're hoping by the end of that market access period, we have at least 3 of those distribution partners set up that can help us integrate into the hospital. Those, I think, are probably the 2 biggest pieces that we need to solve to make it easy for the clinicians to use.
That's all the time we have, I'm afraid, Eric. Thank you so much for your presentation. And now I'd just like to thank you once again, the judges and the companies that took part in the pitch presentations today. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Komodo Health, and our partners who helped spread the word about this event. Thanks very much.